Steve Witkoff made a major mistake in Moscow. The U.S. special envoy, a property developer with no diplomatic background, met Vladimir Putin on August 6 and later told Donald Trump that the Kremlin was ready to make major territorial concessions to end the war in Ukraine. According to Reuters, Witkoff then briefed European leaders that Putin was prepared to withdraw from Zaporizhia and Kherson in exchange for the withdrawal of forces from Donetsk and Lugansk. The claim shocked many as it contradicted their understanding of Russia's position. The very next day, Witkoff changed his account, saying Putin had no actually offered to leave those regions, but merely hinted at lesser concessions, such as not demanding the West's formal recognition of them as part of Russia. By attending the meeting without a State Department official, Witkoff broke protocol and left no official record of Putin's words. The confusion led to chaos in subsequent diplomacy, even after Trump and Putin met in Alaska. As former U.S. envoy to Ukraine, Kurt Volker, told to Reuters that Russia has not shifted its stance at all. The war continues, and Washington still lacks a clear strategy to make Putin to stop. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy says Russia's latest bombardment of Kyiv proves Vladimir Putin is choosing missiles over peace. At least 21 people were killed and 48 wounded when Russian drones and missiles struck the capital early on Thursday. Among the targets hit were offices belonging to the European Union. It was one of the biggest Russian aerial assaults on Kyiv since the start of the full-scale invasion, and it came as US-led peace efforts continued to stall. Ukraine's Air Force reported that Moscow launched nearly 600 drones and more than 30 missiles across the country, most of them aimed at Kyiv. The Kremlin insists it still wants to continue talks, despite what officials at Kyiv describe as one of the largest attacks of the war. Lithuania's defense minister has called hopes for peace talks with Russia naive after one of the deadliest air attacks on Kyiv this week.
In Washington, we heard that Vladimir Putin is apparently ready for the end of the war, for a meeting at the level of leaders and the resolution of key issues. But he is choosing ballistics instead of any real steps towards peace. He kills children so as not to talk about when and how there will be peace.
Ireland's defense minister Simon Harris said Russia's actions breached the Vienna Convention and urged tougher sanctions. He also announced that Irish officials will formally protest to Russian diplomats in Dublin. The UN Security Council has scheduled an emergency meeting at the request of Ukraine and 5 European members.
And hopes of possible peace negotiations are at least naive. One would look what is happening in Ukraine, what just happened yesterday, when 23 people were killed in Kyiv, when diplomatic missions were bombed, when we see that all Putin is doing is really stalling, actually cheaply buying time to kill more people.
I have instructed my officials to demarche the Russian diplomats in Ireland, but I think it's very important that the entire world speaks with one voice in its absolute condemnation of Russia's clear breach of the Vienna Convention. What's also clear is that while the world is talking about peace and how do we bring about peace and dialogue and diplomacy to end the war on Ukraine, it's quite clear that Russia is continuing to engage in the actions of terror, attacking a civilian population, showing no willingness for a ceasefire.
It now seems clear there will no be meeting between Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy and Russia's dictator Putin. That's what German Chancellor Friedrich Merz said to the French President Emmanuel Macron in southern France. The two leaders met for dinner at Fort de Bragançon to discuss Ukraine, European security and economic ties. Both underlined that Europe must stand with Kyiv and remain united against Russia's war.
I believe that the Franco-German duo today is perfectly aligned to have a stronger Europe in economic, trade and monetary matters, but also to have a Europe that maintains its geopolitical position in the conflict in Ukraine, in the face of the war of aggression launched by Russia, and a Europe that also faces its challenges head-on, and has decided to rearm to ensure its protection.
Portugal's president has accused Donald Trump of acting as Russian agent in the context of the war in Ukraine. Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa made the remarks during a surprise appearance at the Summer University of Portugal's Social Democratic Party. Speaking on international affairs, he described Trump as part of a new, emotional style of leadership that relies on direct contact with the public. But he added that in practice, the US president was objectively functioning as a Russian agent. Rebelo de Sousa stressed that he was not talking about a traditional alliance based on a friendship or ideology, but said America's new leadership has strategically benefited Russia. His comments come days after Trump warned of the risk of an economic war if he failed to persuade Vladimir Putin to end the invasion of Ukraine. Trump also dismissed Moscow's recent questioning of President Volodymyr Zelensky's legitimacy as political theater. Ukraine has struck a Russian Buyan M missile covert with FPV drones, marking the first time in history that such drones have successfully hit a combat warship. The attack took place in Azov Sea. The Buyan M, a carrier of Kalibr cruise missiles, suffered damage to its hull and lost its main radar, leaving it effectively blind to see an air target. According to Defense Express, Ukrainian military intelligence units are likely to have used Rubaka and UG-26 Baber drones. Video footage showed the Russian ship attempting to maneuver, but its air defense systems did not respond. The strike occurred at a record distance of more than 350 kilometers. Analysts say it highlights both the growing effectiveness of Ukrainian drones and the vulnerability of Russia's Black Sea Fleet, much of which is already either under repair or not combat ready. The attack came on the same date as the first recorded combat use of FPV drone in 1952, exactly 73 years earlier. Russia no longer insists on taking full control of the 4 Ukrainian regions it partially occupies, according to Turkey's Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan. He said that during the third round of talks hosted in Turkey, Moscow presented its updated position. He noted that while Russia previously demanded all administrative borders of Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia and Kherson, it has now scaled back its claim. According to Fidan, at least, Russia is now seeking full control of the Donetsk region and to hold its current positions along the front line in Zaporizhia. He described this shift as a significant change, though he acknowledged it remains deeply problematic for Ukraine. The discussion in Turkey, where both Kyiv and Moscow laid out concrete positions for the first time, were later raised at the Trump-Putin meeting in Alaska. Fidan admitted that if Ukraine were to lose Donetsk, defending the rest of its territory would become much harder. He stressed that international security guarantees are essential to stabilize the situation and keep dialogue open. European officials are also weighing the idea of a 40-kilometer buffer zone inside Ukraine, possibly backed by peacekeeping forces. The proposal is controversial as it would likely mean territorial concessions from Kyiv, something Ukrainians strongly oppose as they continue to defend against Russia's terrorist war. Europe would need millions more artillery shells to defend itself, according to Armin Pepperger, the chief executive of German arms maker Rheinmetall. Speaking to Sky News, he said the West currently has around 2 million shells in stock, far too few in the face of Russia's war against Ukraine. Half of all new production, he added, will come from Rheinmetall. Pepperger recalled a conversation with President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, who told him Ukraine would need at least 2.5 million shells in a ceasefire scenario and 4.5 million if the war continues. Rheinmetall is rapidly expanding production with new factories in Romania, Bulgaria and the UK. Even so, Pepperger estimated it could take 10 years to fully rebuild Europe's stockpiles. He said Europe would still be able to defend itself if attacked sooner, but warned the threat of a Russia assault on NATO in the next 5 years is forcing governments to rearm at speed. That's all for now. Thank you for watching us, and for more content about Ukraine, please subscribe.